What's up, Geek family? Welcome to episode 2 of the League of Legends World Championship Series report. My name is Pete, and I'm here with Patrick. Patrick, say hello.
Howdy.
Patrick was with us last week when we were talking about the series, and a lot of stuff has changed since then, hasn't it, Patrick?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, a ton of stuff has happened over the past few days. Cloud9 got completely wiped off of the face of the earth. World Championship Series, boom. No more American teams. Sorry, guys. America did not advance any further than was going to. Got a couple other teams that did advance, however. We got Origin out of Europe, defeated Flash Wolves 3-1 on Thursday, which is yesterday. And then we got SKT defeating AHQ today, Friday, 3-0. And that was a bit of a whooping right there, Patrick. You saw a lot more than I did, obviously. I had to work today. Kind of running by me, man. How bad was that? How bad did they beat him?
It was pretty ugly. But it's nothing that nobody wasn't expecting. I mean, for the most part, the Koreans are the powerhouses, as is evidenced by the fact that all three Korean teams made it through the group stages.
Right.
And Taiwan is generally considered to be one of the weaker regions, despite the fact that both their teams did get through the group stages, which was impressive in and of itself. They had no chance against the Koreans, especially SKT, who's the favorite to win the entire tournament.
The favorite to win the entire tournament. So, I guess judging by their performance today, would you say that maybe they're going up against, on the bracket right over here, looks like they're going to go up against, let me see here, I just lost my bracket. Sorry about that, guys. Going to pull that up. They're going against Origin in the semifinals.
Yes. That, I think, will be a pretty decent series. I think Origin will at least be able to take one game off of SKT. They've got the talent and the shot calling and the ability to do it.
Right.
Yeah, but at the same time, I still wouldn't be surprised if SKT 3-0'd them. It's just that's really how strong SKT is. Judging
by that, SKT's a hell of a team already as is. Origin's, just a new team, altogether now. Yeah, they've only been a pro team for about a year now. And, they went up against Flash Wolves, took care of them pretty quickly. I guess, they beat them 2-1, actually. And, I guess, like, them going up against SKT, going to be interesting to say the least.
Yeah. Well, like we were talking about beforehand, how Origin was sort of born from the dregs of Fnatic.
Right.
Yeah, they're a new team, but at the same time, the thing with Origin is that they have a lot of experience. We're talking about Xpeke, who's been around since, I think, Season 1 or Season 2 in Fnatic and been to almost every World Championship.
Right on.
Same thing with Soaz, the top laner. It's just there's a lot of experience on that team, so it's a little bit different from most teams that are only a year old. So you kind of give them the benefit of the doubt just because the age and experience of the players with them.
Right. Do you think they kind of had it easy getting into the World Championship Series? Do you think they went up against weaker teams already? Like, judging by the amount of experience that Origin has versus the other teams that maybe that they were going up against?
I don't know. Europe has actually improved quite a bit. Last season, they were kind of in the same location that North America finds themselves in now, with none of their teams making it through the group stages.
Right.
And so it's been a huge improvement for Europe since the end of last season. They had H2K come in, who are, I mean, yeah, they didn't make it through the group stages, but they did really, really, really well for a newly formed team that just came in. I don't think they finished any less than third place in either of the two splits they were there.
Okay.
There was another team that came in, the Unicorns of Love, while having the best name in the LCS, definitely.
Definitely.
But they kind of brought a new kind of play style to Europe in that they played a lot of picks that weren't in meta, and they won with them.
Really?
And so they just always wanted to fight all the time, whether they were behind, whether they were ahead, if it was a horrible time to fight. So there was a lot of like changes in Europe as far as the teams go, that kind of made everybody. Uh, so it's just one of those things where they had a huge growth and North America didn't, and it kind of showed in the World Championship this year.
Definitely, with Cloud9 getting swept out of there after going 3-0.
For the dream.
Yeah, man, it's really disheartening that we couldn't get our stuff together, of course. But hey, that's why we have these other teams to root for. It's kind of like I guess watching soccer in that respect. I mean, we still have an American soccer team, right? I'm pretty sure we do. But
I mean, it's really funny because there's always been this huge rivalry between North America and Europe, where, I mean, you go to Twitch chat during the streams, you go to Reddit, like all over the place. It's always been NA versus EU, and the competition between the two of them, because for years it's the only people we've been able to beat is each other, because we couldn't beat the Chinese teams and we couldn't beat the Korean teams.
Right.
So the big rivalry was let's beat each other up,
yeah,
and then turn around and lose to the Asian teams. And so since last season, it's kind of changed a little bit, because last year during Worlds, like we talked about last week, was the first time that the Western teams had been able to defeat the Eastern teams.
Right.
And so now it's kind of changed the mindset a little bit to where it's not so much North America versus Europe, and it's a lot more of the West versus the East. And so, yeah, all the North American teams have been knocked out, but instead of being all salty about it, a lot of the North American fans are actually pulling for Fnatic and Origin because they want to see a Western team perform and do well.
Right. And, you mentioned just a few minutes ago, SKT against Origin. Pretty much know where that's going to go, more than likely.
Yeah, more than likely. But I think Origin also, it's a weird feeling. I think that Origin and Fnatic both have the potential to win the entire thing if they just play perfectly. But SKT is just so good. Every single player. I think right now, or I don't know if by the end of today it's still true, but I know before the day started, the AD carry on SK Telecom had like a 73.0 KDA.
Wow.
Like, it was dumb.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah, like that. It's the team is stacked. Every single player is really good. So it's just kind of one of those things where everyone else is fighting an uphill battle, hoping that they can manage to win.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting series. Fnatic and Edward Gaming go head to head tomorrow.
I think that is the series of the week, personally. I think KT Rolster and Ku, which is the series happening Sunday, it's kind of more of the same. They're both Korean teams, so they've played each other a lot. They're familiar with each other.
Right.
I think KT will win just because they're more consistently good. Ku Tigers, when they play at their best, Ku Tigers is a lot of times actually better than SK Telecom. But the trick is they almost never play at their best.
Really?
So they're a really inconsistent team. And so I think KT Rolster will end up getting the win. But that series tomorrow between Fnatic and Edward Gaming, I think, can go 5 games, and it can go either way. EDG, we talked about last week how there are 2 splits in the seasons.
Right.
There's a spring split and a summer split. Between the spring split and the summer split, they have what's called the Mid-Season Invitational, where the winner of each individual LCS or league for each country gets brought in to a tournament, and they play a round robin with each other, and then the top 4 teams in that round robin go into bracket stages against each other. And so it was really interesting last year because Edward Gaming at MSI beat SKT.
Oh, really?
And it's, I believe, the exact same roster that did it.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
Edward Gaming is a real serious team that's really good. It's just the problem is right now the meta isn't favoring Chinese teams very well. They're not adapting to it as well as the other teams are. Their pick bans are actually really bad. Pick ban phase in League of Legends is really, really important, to the point that it can, if done well, it can pretty much win you a game. And the Chinese teams have just not done very well in it. Whereas the Europe and Korea have, even North America was doing really well in big bands. They just sucked after big bands.
Right. Yeah.
So it's going to be a real interesting series because Fnatic took SK Telecom to 5 games at midseason invitational.
Oh yes, that sounds.
And
excellent.
Edward Gaming beat SK Telecom at the midseason invitational.
Okay, so that's gonna be quite the series.
Yeah,
And
it'll definitely be a fun one to watch.
And like we were talking about earlier, it's going to be at 8 a.m. You know,
Yes, sir.
Central time for us, of course, 9 a.m. Eastern. That'll be tomorrow, Saturday, October 17th. More than reasonable to get up and watch it. You guys should definitely check that out if you're listening to this late. And then if not, you're going to listen to it tomorrow. ETK, it's going to be 9 a.m. Or 8 a.m. also for KT Rooster and Coup Tigers also. So there was also a bit of other kind of a talk of the week. Let's see here. TSM splitting up a couple of their players.
Yes, sir. Right now, what it looks like is, I mean, this isn't an uncommon thing. At the end of seasons, there's a lot of turnover in teams.
Mm-hmm.
Looking for free agents, trying to bring in talent from other countries, other regions, just trying to make your team better. At the end of Dyrus, the top laner for TSM, before Worlds had already announced that he was planning to retire, so no one was really surprised by that one. But after getting knocked out, Santorin, who's the jungler for TSM, stated that he's going to step down, and Lustboy, who was the support for TSM, said that he's going to retire as well. So TSM's currently in the business for a top laner, jungler, and support, which is a little interesting because Cloud9, is basically in the same position. Their support, Elimination, has said that he's probably going to retire and look into going into coaching. And Hai, who was the jungler for them during Worlds, is going back into retirement because, like we said last week, he came out of retirement just to kind of help them get the ship straight and keep them in the LCS.
Right.
So he's going back into retirement. So you've got TSM and Cloud9, who are the 2 premier teams in North America, both shopping for the same positions. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of unfolds.
And I think it's interesting that we were also talking about it earlier. They step down, or, as they like to say that, they're going to retire. But, they really don't retire. They kind of just, take a step back and from the game. And like how we were talking about earlier, they either stream while still under the same name brand for the team. And, obviously have a different, role within that realm, but they're always underneath the, especially TSM for this example, they're always still TSM guys. They're just not on the active roster. And,
a thing too to note is stepping down and retiring are a little bit different for League of Legends lingo.
Okay.
Stepping down, you typically say that when a player's leaving the team but still looking to play.
Okay.
So if another team tries to pick him up, they'll go ahead and keep playing. But just for whatever reason, it didn't work out with, like, Santorin and TSM didn't really work out.
Right.
So instead, he's going to try to take his talent somewhere else, if someone will take him. And if not, he'll probably just go to streaming as well until he can try to get to another team. But when you're retiring, they're just leaving professional scene altogether.
Leaving the game altogether. Now, do you kind of see that as, because we were talking about how, you just get into streaming if you're not, playing League. What do these guys do if they're just, not playing the game?
Man, I don't even know. A lot of them end up going back to school because, in several cases, they get out of high school because you can't. I don't think you can play in the LCS itself until you're 16 years old.
I see.
But a lot of times they're still in high school in that case. And so what happens is they'll be practicing at their house with the team, and then the team owner will fly them out every weekend to California to play in the games and then fly them back home for school. So that's not really a very popular option that'll happen. So most of the time they'll wait until they're 18 years old, and if their talent is high enough, they'll join a team. Uh, so it's a lot of recruitment straight out of high school.
Right.
And so a lot of times they don't get to go to college because if you go to college, then you're not going to have time to play LCS games where
Right. Yeah.
you have to practice 10 to 12 hours a day.
Yeah. It's probably not going to be the best on your grades, I can imagine.
Probably. I mean, I play 4 or 5 hours a day. It's not the best on my grades. So it's definitely an opportunity. A lot of them look to go back to school. Others, like we talked about, I'm a Cutie Pie earlier, who is a former AD carry for Team Dignitas, who once he retired, he went into streaming and he wakes up, I believe, at 6 a.m. every day, starts streaming until about 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
Oh, wow.
And I believe he makes about 6 figures a year.
6 figures from streaming League of Legends.
Yeah.
That just proves to you right there that there's definitely money behind the game. That
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're practically throwing at streamers, just for
Yep.
being
Being entertaining.
Being entertaining. And I remember you said earlier as well. I mean, he's one of the funniest guys.
Oh man, he's a riot. I would definitely, if you are ever bored and on Twitch and feel like watching League of Legends randomly, Cutie Pie's the go-to guy. That guy's hilarious.
Right on. Definitely gonna have to remember that. So I guess leading up to the actual final game, what are your predictions so far? I guess we kind of already said at least between Fnatic and Edward Gaming, that's going to be the best one coming up. We kind of already think SKT is going to take it. Probably Coup Tigers if they play absolutely perfect. But who are you really thinking we're going to see in the final on Halloween?
I think whoever wins, I think SKT is the obvious choice to get to the final on that side of the bracket.
Right.
But the bottom side's a lot more interesting. I really honestly think that whoever wins between Fnatic and Edward Gaming is going to be the one that gets to the final on the other bracket.
Get to the final.
I'm holding out hope for Fnatic personally. I think Fnatic is unbelievably good when they actually play to their best. They had some trouble in the group stages. They went, I believe, 1-2 the first week just because their top laner Huni is extremely good, but at the same time he gets a little cocky, and when he gets cocky they tend to lose. So as long as they keep their head on straight and they play well, I think they can make it to the final.
And you did
that'll be a series too.
Yeah, and you did mention earlier that Edward Gaming obviously has to play perfect, in order to win the game. How exactly does a team play perfect? Like just situational awareness, and then there's obviously techniques and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of the higher level you play in League of Legends, the less kills there are. Ironically, because everyone's better, and there's a lot more respect between the top players than what you would see in like low elo games where everyone just thinks they're better than everyone else. Mm-hmm. And so they always try to go in for kills, whereas at the pro level, they understand that the people they're playing at are just as good or better than they are. And so if they make one wrong move, the other person's going to capitalize on it. And so playing perfectly at the highest level entails, not making dumb mistakes as far as stepping out and getting caught out. Mm-hmm. It means warding heavily. Warding is a really important thing in League of Legends, and that the majority of the map is just dark. It's covered in fog of war.
Right. Fog of war, for you guys that don't know, is when you're playing a game, you can't see the entire map on the onset.
Mm-hmm. And so that's how League of Legends is set up. And so there are certain ways to deal with this. Some champions have things built into their kit that allows them to put vision somewhere, like in a small area.
Right.
And there are also items called wards that you can buy that will light up a circular area in the jungle. And each person on a team can put 3 wards down at once. And then there's also there's green wards and there's pink wards. Mm-hmm. And the green wards you can lay down up to 3 at once, and the pink wards you can lay down 1 at a time. And the difference between them is that when you lay down the green wards, they go invisible. So you have to use certain items and kind of guess where they're at to remove them. The pink wards don't go invisible, but they let you see where green wards are, so you can clear the green wards.
Right on.
So there's a big layer of strategy that goes into warding, and so it's really really important in League of Legends because usually the team that has the most vision is the team that wins. If you, I mean, it makes sense. If you see what your enemies are doing, you're going to know how to react to it.
Absolutely. And it's no big secret too when you're watching a game that if you can see somebody and you can do something to them, hey, why not?
Yeah, definitely. And so it's rewarding really well is another way of playing perfectly. Mechanically playing at your best is also really important. When you make mistakes, it tends to cost you on the highest level, like missing a skill shot, jumping in when you shouldn't have. There are all sorts of times that say there's a champion called Thresh who throws out a hook, and if he hits you with the hook, then you're stunned, and he can do all sorts of things to you once you're hooked, but he has to hit the hook, and it's not the easiest skill shot in the world to hit. And so a lot of what happens is, and it's also got a fairly long cooldown. So what'll happen is on the highest level, the pros know about how long that cooldown is, if not exactly how long it is.
Right.
And so if Thresh misses a hook, then that's a signal for your team to go and fight them because they're down that major way of controlling one of your people. So you just go in and fight them while it's down, and they can't respond as easily because they're down a major tool. And so at the highest level, they know how to recognize those kinds of things and capitalize on them really quickly.
Right. And I guess, as we were going along, even then, even getting into the mechanics and stuff like that, how we were talking about, obviously, the person on the team who's, going to be your eyes and ears basically, and, getting everybody to move in a certain place, the tactician, stuff like that, obviously plays a huge role. And like we were talking about last week, tactics are exactly why you win games. That's why I guess I find it so interesting, especially in League. It's like you really could play perfect if you needed to, but you really got to play perfect. You really have to have that skill set in place in order to do that. And
it's definitely one of those things that's easier said than done.
Right, and I guess that's what makes especially World so interesting is like you see it at a level so grand, like you can't even think like, man, why, like how can I do this? Like how exactly is this possible?
even SKT earlier today in Game 3 against AHQ, they lost a couple team fights in a row because they made really big mistakes and they got caught out, and then AHQ actually at one point had a gold lead against them, but because SKT is just a smarter, better team, they were able to get things back under control and end up winning in the end. So it's one of those things where if you don't play perfect against a team who can capitalize on it, then you're making a mess.
Yeah. As evidence, you watch the really big stakes games like that, and you do see them make mistakes, and you're just like, and you can tell because when you watch the playbacks and the playthroughs, or even while you're watching it live, the audience reacts exactly to those kind of mistakes, and the way that they're not shy about it. Like you'll hear the O's and the ooh, and they can obviously tell that something's going on with that. I guess it's super exciting to just see.
Oh man, and see that's one of the things that Riot and League of Legends as a whole really does well and has right, is the shotcasters for League of Legends that kind of announce the game as it's going on are very, very, very good at what they do. They put in almost as much time as the professionals do preparing and getting ready.
Right.
They research all the players, what their favorite champions are. They all have every single ability of every single champion memorized, the name of it, whether it's on the Q, W, E, or R. They're all extremely knowledgeable, and they have a great understanding of what's going on in the game, especially because a lot of them actually used to play the game at the professional level.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that I really enjoy about watching professional League of Legends is that you have these shoutcasters that just add so much to the game. And so it's really good in that they will go through instant replays during the game, because a lot of the times after a big fight happens, there's kind of a little lull where everyone goes back, buys items, respawn timers are happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so during those lulls, they'll rewind it a little bit and they'll have a instant replay like in pro sports.
Right.
And it's really neat because they'll walk you through what happens in the team fight, why it went wrong for the team that lost, what the team that won did well. I mean, it's a great way to learn the game. That's why I really encourage people watching the LCS, because you see what it takes to win on the highest level, and so you can kind of adapt it to your own game.
And we were also speaking a little bit about that, last week. And watching the pros definitely does help. I used it in Street Fighter, watching the Evo, watching the Evo Championship Series every single year.
For sure.
No reason anybody else can do the same thing, especially back in the day when MLG was still a thing. You had guys that would play Halo 2, and you had guys who'd play like, now I guess it's Call of Duty now. I mean, but even then, like, I guess, and like how you said, the shoutcasters really make the sport an actual spectacle kind of thing to actually watch.
Definitely.
You watch somebody play Call of Duty and it's just like it's not really interesting. It's mildly interesting, I guess, if you're into that kind of stuff, into that kind of tournament. But League of Legends is just so far above that. There's
a lot of fanfare with League of Legends. It's really well done.
Yeah, I guess the whole kind of culture behind it and stuff like that, it'd be interesting to see live. You ever thought about going to a Worlds or even making a trip out to a really large tournament to watch that?
That's the dream. My hope is one day, once I have money, what North America does for their playoffs is they'll hold them at conventions a lot of times.
Nice.
I think PAX Prime is one of the conventions they use a lot, the one up in Seattle.
Oh, okay, yeah, PAX Prime.
And so the goal is to one day go to that and be able to watch it. I mean, that's the hopes. I want to be able to go to at least one of them at one point. I think it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would love to go too, just to get a kind of like a breath of all the culture and stuff like that. I remember going to it was this PAX South actually this January. And I walked by this guy, and he's playing League, and I'm not sure exactly who he was. I don't know if he was like, I guess, internet famous. Maybe he was. But he's playing League in front of a crowd of people, and people are just reacting to the commentary. It was like a live kind of commentary thing on Twitch, and man, it just seemed like the culture's really good, and I guess sometimes, people play League and they're just like, oh, the community's vapid, they suck. But, watching it in a group as like a kind of like a spectator kind of thing is really, really, really refreshing and really fun.
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely that tournament that I played in a couple weeks ago, I mean, there was a crowd of people that were we had it being viewed in spectator mode up on the on a projector against the wall, and there was just a crowd of people watching us, and it was really cool to play because whenever something big happened, they got excited. You feed off the energy. It was a really cool experience, definitely.
It's like hitting the field on game day, and you're in your hometown and you're wearing the home team jersey that day. Yeah, man, I just can't. I really would like to do that one day as well. Of course, pipe dreams. We got to get to we got to get the money to be able to go to these things, and
exactly.
Them streaming it is great. It's excellent. It's gonna be some interesting series coming up this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
ET Fnatic versus Edward Gaming tomorrow, like we said earlier, and KT Rolster versus Coup Tigers on Sunday.
Yep.
And then, of course, on Saturday, October 24th, we got the first semifinal game going to be Origin versus Telecom. We've heard of predictions. Guys, we want to know what you think. Obviously, leave us some comments in the bottom section over here on YouTube. Leave us comments on the Facebook. Patrick, do you have anything to add before we wrap up today?
Nah, man. I'm good.
Alrighty. Well, guys, we want to thank you so much for taking the time out to listen to this episode. Patrick will be back for week 3, and then we'll have the final episode a little bit right before the final game on Halloween. And that's going to be an interesting turn of events, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, guys, Geek family, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to check us out, Alamo City Geek Speak on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Like us on YouTube. Share the videos with your friends, your family, your mom, your dad, your cousin. Check out Patrick's stream, Mac to Merc at Twitch. We did put a link on the other video. We're going to put another one on this one. And just check out the World Championship Series League of Legends. We'll be putting a couple of links on our homepage and also on this video as well. So check it out.